so I learned really quickly that it's not just about doing push-ups in mud, although at some point it is about doing push-ups in the sand, and that was terrible.
Hello, this is Tab Bartley, and you are listening to the Oath We Took podcast, the show that tells the Marine Corps story through the Marines that served. This is the 5th episode. Today, instead of just sharing one Marine story, I have two amazing educators who will share their experience at the Marine Corps Educators Workshop. So many Marines make the decision to join the Marine Corps during high school. The workshop we are discussing today is open to high school educators and is a behind-the-curtains view of the transformation from civilian to Marine. I know so many amazing Marines who hesitate to tell their stories. Their stories hold so much power and so many life lessons. Oftentimes, though, they go untold. Not every Marine story is the same. What is the same is the oath that we all took. Thank you both for joining me today, and I'm so excited to have you here and see you because it's been years since I've seen you. And I'm first gonna have you guys introduce yourselves and tell me kind of what you do in the education realm, high school educator or, administrative, kind of that level of where you are in the education realm. And then we will start asking questions about the workshop. And Tanya, I will have you go first.
Oh, amazing. Hello, my name is Tanya Manning, and I was first introduced to this program when I was a high school administrator here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I always worked closely with the recruiters that would come out to the high school, and I was introduced to this opportunity through them, and it was transformative. It really just opened my eyes to the experience of, those first few weeks as a Marine. And it also gave me some insight into how to make the program more accessible to our students. The high school I was at was a Title I high school. And so in some ways it was low poverty. And we needed to make sure that all of our students, that was our mission, to make sure all of our students had access to as many post-secondary experiences as possible, and not just college, And I would say the most beneficial aspect of this program was the relationships I built since then. I currently work as a corporate training specialist and have my own company where I coach teachers who are transitioning into the corporate world. I also design online learnings and websites. And so I'm still in the educational realm. I'm a forever teacher. And believe it or not, I still hype up the Marines and the opportunities that they still give to our kids. So thank you so much for inviting me on this podcast. I can't wait to chat.
Thank you for joining me.
And I'm Mauricio Restrepo. I was a teacher when I went through the educators workshop, so I saw it from a little bit of a different lens, but I hold that information really near and dear to my heart still. So I'm currently a high school assistant principal. I was just named this past semester assistant principal of the year for my district. So a little bit of hype there, but I spend a lot of time talking to recruiters, talking to students about their future plans when we're having dropout meetings, when we're having grade meetings, attendance meetings. I don't always suggest, Marine Corps or military in general, but for students who don't know what they want to do, that need a change of pace in life, I do make that recommendation, right? And I recommend them straight to that recruiter. I tell them, what are you interested in? The military has tons of jobs that you can do. In whatever you're interested in. Like, you want to be a plumber, there's plumbers. Like, you want to be a cook, there's cooks. You want to be a pilot, there's pilots. There's guys that change, that there's mechanics, there's all that stuff. So just trying to stay close to my recruiters. Our recruiter right now, currently, our Marine Corps recruiter is amazing. Always reaches out, always makes sure he says hey when he's walking through the hallways to me. But even like in my personal life, I take what I learned. I have a 16-year-old or soon to be 16-year-old, and he's been talking about going Marine Corps for the past like 5 years. And so although, I'm not pushing it, like, I still want them to be one of his hopes and dreams. And if he wants to do it, I want to help him pursue it. He can do whatever he wants. He's probably going to change his mind. I know he will. But I want to make sure that I take the information, the knowledge I learned from that workshop to be able to help people in the future.
And it's funny that one of the things you said is like the military and the Marine Corps aren't for everybody. And I do think that that's one of the perceptions of somebody who doesn't really know much about the workshop. When we bring it up, they think that it's okay, the Marine Corps is pushing everybody to join the Marine Corps. And it's like, it's actually kind of the opposite. We're not doing that during the workshop. It's instead, we're showing kind of, here's the requirements. We talked earlier before we started recording the podcast that to get in the Marine Corps, you can't just have a GED, as where other branches of service you can. And so there's little things like that, that if you have a high school student who's looking at the military and looking at the branches, that's something that may be a motivator to get them to get their high school diploma, right? Because it's one less hoop that they would have to jump through to become a Marine. And so with that being brought up, I'm curious of what were maybe some of the perceptions that you had of the Marine Corps before the workshop that were changed during the workshop.
I guess I'll start. One of the perceptions that I had was the Marines just kind of like fight, like the infantry type, the few and the proud. I knew it was more elite, or I felt that it was more elite than the Army or Navy. I have since learned that that's not true. Each armed service, each branch has their own kind of niche, right? And another myth was, that they were almost robotic. I'm not going to say that, that's just not true. They're human, the humanity, the compassion, the kindness, the hospitality that was shown to us was amazing. And there was one thing that was confirmed though, with this experience, and that is leadership. This branch is definitely for those people or those young people who have exhibited leadership skills. And so they are not just simple robotic followers, just lead me where you want to go. But they are leaders within themselves. Like they actually have to develop that sense of I'm part of a team, and because I'm part of a team, I'm also leading us too, I may not have the rank, but I have to exhibit those skills. And so those were just a couple of things that kind of changed my mind about this branch service.
I love that.
I completely agree with you on that, Tanya. Like, man, I thought that like people that went to Marine Corps, they just got yelled at and they just ran around and like did push-ups in mud and all that stuff. But I can tell you, like watching the process from a 10,000 foot view, really talking to and I always get this wrong. Is it drill instructor, drill sergeant?
Drill instructor in the Marine Corps. And you guys were blessed to have a female drill instructor, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you got to go in you did go in the I was about to say that. I made sure that my educators got the best experience.
But the drill instructor, right? Getting to talk to them and seeing, I think, like Tanya said, the humanity in them, right? Like they're doing a job. Their job is to build Marines. And so I learned really quickly that it's not just about doing push-ups in mud. Although at some point it is about doing push-ups in the sand, and that was terrible. But I think at the same time, like they're going through this process and they're on a schedule. They have to do 100 points in the day. They have to make sure they get 8 hours of sleep. They have to make sure like it's very structured. And I'm sure it doesn't feel that way when you're going through it, because you just know you're getting yelled at, you're getting screamed at. It's the next thing. But really, like, they're encouraging them along the way. They're telling them they can do it. They're trying to make sure they don't drop out. They're trying to push them to reach their goals. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, was like, it's not just about like being tough and whatever, like you're going through a process.
And what's I think so cool about the workshop is you guys learn that like firsthand. Like you experienced things. The drill instructor marched you. The drill instructor put you in the pit and made you guys do exercises. You guys counted off like how many times?
Oh my
We
God.
must have counted. We were counting for like the first hour, right? Like I don't.
Yeah.
So I talk about this still, right, to friends of mine now. Talk about the workshop and like how they should go. And I say, yeah, they put you on the yellow footprints. They don't know what it is. So I kind of explain a little bit of that. I said, and then they make you count. I said, and we're all educated people and we couldn't count to 22. Like we couldn't follow simple direction. And they're like, so what happened was like, we just kept going and counting and going
And
on-
ran.
and then ran back and then counted. It's like, what is happening here, people?
And then like, I think you brought up the yellow footprints. I think it's so cool that we show you these things, right? But like, you're not able to walk through the doors. Only Marines can walk through the doors. So although we're showing you things, there's things that are so important to the Marine Corps history and Marines in general, that although we have an open curtain, there's traditions that we're going to stick to. And we're going to stick to that, which again, love the workshop and love the week. And so it's a week at Paris Island. And you guys got to do everything from rappel tower to, did you guys go through the gas chamber?
Yes.
Okay. I had 1 year we couldn't go through the gas chamber because it was too much. They had just done something, rappel tower, gas chamber, firing weapons, to just all sorts of different things. And so what was your favorite like activity or moment in the workshop, or even eating lunch with recruits from your
gosh.
area?
There's just so many. I mean, I can't even pick a favorite. I was able to do things I didn't think I could do. The rappel tower, yeah, it was high, but it's not until you get up to the top that you realize, wow, this is going to take something else, out of like this is going to push me. And you knew you were going to be okay. It's just that initial step off of the platform. And
I didn't know it was gonna be okay, Tanya. Can you really look clear? Like I tied my own harness, Tanya. Right? Like they were like, oh, looks
Right.
good. I'm like, what looks good, guy? Like,
yeah, tell me. But and they're with you every step of the way. But this is you, like this is your moment where you can push yourself. So the rappel tower definitely was one of my favorites, and of course, shooting the rifle. I was like, okay, I want more. I just have to keep going. My hands down favorite activity was lunch, when we were able to sit and talk to the Marine recruits, like the new ones. And I think they had been, well, not the new, but they had been in for, I guess, a few weeks. And the discipline and the humility and the kindness and the intensity, they're just so intense. And yeah, they were able to answer our questions like, where are you from? This recruit, ma'am, is from so-and-so, they don't have names. It's like this recruit. So yeah, there's just so many different experiences. We were able to meet history in person with this African-American Marine vet who was in Vietnam and, did some heroic things with his, I don't know what you call it, squad team, unit, I don't know. And, that was in the museum there on Paris Island. And so it was just like everywhere you look, there was an opportunity to learn more. I mean, gosh, the immigration ceremony.
Yeah.
We were able to watch, it almost tears me up now just to know that these people come from other countries to serve and to protect ours, and they weren't even citizens yet. And during the graduation ceremony, we were able to witness their immigration ceremony as well, and that was one of the first things that happened, so that when they went through the entire graduation, they were doing it as citizens, you know. So that's it. I'll stop. But man, I could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Tanya. I think my favorite part of the whole thing was the graduation piece, and then the immigration, the naturalization process was really cool to see. To have them in uniform doing that, and then be able to go with their unit and kind of finish off the ceremony. That was really cool. That was probably the most heartfelt to me. I would say talking to the recruits was really cool. I actually, the second time we got to have meal with the recruit, I was talking to a guy, an older gentleman. When I say older, he was probably 32 at the time, but he was a reservist going through. And so like, he kind of already had the mentality of like, I know it's happening. I'll be fine. I'll make it. Like, we'll be fine. Right. So that was really cool to see his point of view. You know, and talking to them was really cool. But I think, again, that naturalization process was the coolest part of the week for me, or the 4 days, I should say. Another really cool part was shooting guns, Tanya. So I'm not a gun nut, right? Like I'm not, you know, I like shooting. I enjoy the sport. But when I'm going out there and shooting the M16s and they're letting me shoot 3-round bursts, like that's something that not normal people can do, right? You know, when I'm looking at the magazines and they're green tips, and I'm like, we're shooting green tips. He's like, we don't have anything else here, you know, and they're like, you know, they're giving us like, you know, 5 and 10 round magazines, and people are, I don't remember if you remember, like people were at the end were like, I'm done shooting. I'm like, well,
I know. Like, give it to me.
I must have shot off, I mean,
Yeah.
300-400 rounds in the last like 15 minutes, just trying to shoot down range.
I think you were the first volunteer when we did the simulation before we went out to the field. I think you were the first one to step up for the
Yeah, that was cool. I
simulation.
have pictures of that, by the way, of you.
Ah,
I do. Every now and then they'll come up on like my photos, like
Yeah.
remember this photo. But yeah, so I mean, just that was really cool. I think the confidence tower was awesome. You know, that like, again, tying your own harness, right? They're like, oh yeah, make a square, make a knot here, make a square knot here, like make a this knot here. Like, okay, now we'll check you. I'm like, check us for what, guys? Like what check us, we're gonna do what? This is gonna go up there? No, like,
yeah.
so it was just really cool. But you know, I think the whole process, like you have to put the whole experience together to really look at it and to say it was an
You do.
amazing experience.
And
Yeah, that's true. It's we are describing pieces of an entire process, because you know we're leaving out the culmination activity where we went through just a little snippet of games that they do at the end, the challenges, you
the
know.
crucible. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Oh, the
Yeah,
crucible
so
was
there's so
cool.
much.
That the piece of the course that we saw, that was
Yeah.
cool. I actually have one of my students, he's one of our cheerleaders. He's going out, he's going in July, he's going, I believe,
Awesome.
Paris Island. And so he's already signed his paperwork and everything, and he's so excited. I mean, and this kid doesn't have emotion, right? Like I'm just like, hey, what do you think, man? He's like, oh, that's good. But like I'm so excited for him to be able to go and see it, and experience it, and then come out. And I told him, I was like, if you get the opportunity to allow me to go to your like the end when you get your Eagle of an Anchor, like I want to be there. 'Cause it's such a cool experience. Such a cool experience.
And the workshop, there's so many things that during the educators workshop that you guys got to see that nobody gets to see. Like nobody. That opportunity is something that is so unique to the workshop. And the reason why it's so important is, again, that information and building those relationships. And yes, it's a recruiting tool, but it's a community building tool more than it is a recruiting tool. We have educators, and, you know, at least my method for getting educators to the workshop, our goal is to find educators who are kind of middle ground, or an educator who's middle ground and somebody who maybe will go with them that's like completely anti, because they have to show up, right? That's the thing. You have to actually show up to the workshop, and it's a big deal. We have very limited seats. And so like we had educators who have never even shot a gun, shoot a gun. We have educators that had a massive fear of heights and were able to conquer the rappel tower and do these things. And so there's, like you said, there's so many levels to the experience. And I'm surprised neither of you mentioned karaoke yet, because you had Major Nash the year, and he busted out some karaoke. It's karaoke night. Thursday night is the tradition for the workshop. So Marines have fun, and they have extra fun after the workshop too. That's an experience. But what is
I was gonna say, talking about real quick, like pieces that people don't normally get to see. So we went to, did we have dinner in the officers?
Yes,
Yes.
officers, the officers club, yes. And that's, so you guys are, and just to kind of give an overview of the workshop, so you're at the workshop for 4 days. And I mean, we're there from like 5 a.m. one day till like 7 p.m. one day. And then you guys do get to stay in a hotel though. I mean, that is something that a lot of people are like, well, I'm not sleeping in barracks. Well, we don't make you guys sleep in barracks. We are at a nice like Holiday Inn, your normal type hotel. And so there's time at the end of the day to, I think one of my favorite things about the workshop is have very like intimate conversations about the Marine Corps, and very real conversations. I remember one of the educators, and I don't think it was with your guys' group, but one of our educators, asked about don't ask, don't tell, and not in a negative way, but really wanted to understand transgenders in the military. So there's conversations that you can't have in a lot of situations, because it's like, are we both listening, or are we both conversing? That at the workshop, you can have those type of conversations. And I think it's so important. And so I think one of the things, we've talked about the workshop having a huge impact on you personally and building in the community. And so what are some of the personal impacts the workshop had on you guys, or that you've seen in your students, or even that you feel like you've brought back as an educator?
I mean, I brought back personally just an appreciation for the process, right? I think, again, I'm going to reiterate, like, it's not for everybody. Military is not for everybody, but, I think it's for more people than we think. And so just having my students know it is an opportunity for them to grow. It is an opportunity for them, if they choose to go that route, get school paid for, get it. Like, you have a career when you come out, you have a career, right? You have experience in what you're doing, all those things. So for me, it's that piece.
When I talked about it, I first wanted to just be very clear about what this is. This branch, along with all the other branches, in the armed forces, have a mission. Mm-hmm. They are to protect us. Yes, you may be deployed. Yes, you may be asked to defend us on a foreign land. And so it's not Disneyland, this is real. This is a commitment. That is why you see a lot of legacy members in the armed branches. You see, like my father served, my uncle served, my grandfather, it's like embedded with like who you are, So I kind of like get that out the way. So yes, this is real, but within that, just like Mauricio said, you have so many opportunities, the careers, you name it, you can do it, especially in the tech field. Especially now in the tech field, everything from transportation. My husband is an Army vet. He spent 20 years in Europe. He has seen some of the most beautiful places driving a truck, and also, an insight that I had is the women. The women are not super women. These are not women who have super strength, superpowers, and just, want to conquer the world. These are average women who have a desire to lead, who have a desire to serve, who work hard alongside the men to achieve those same outcomes. And so, yeah, I think that was a myth that I had, a stereotype that was shattered during this experience. It was obliterated during this experience to see women, you're just average women, being transformed by this experience, but you don't have to come that way. You don't come as a badass superhero type, woman. You come in as you are and they meet you where you are. And if you meet those requirements, you're in, and then they develop you. And and a lot of those things stay with you through your entire life.
Yeah, as you know, as a Marine and obviously going through it, I completely agree with that. And that was one of the reasons for me, it was so important to have a female drill instructor for my educators. And so my role in the educators workshop, I was the one who planned all of it for my educators, the coordination of getting the educators there, the making sure everybody's there, everybody's good while we're there. And for me, it was so important to show female drill instructors because as a female Marine, at that time, females only came from Parris Island. That's the only place female Marines were made. And so it was huge for me to show that because I think there's a lot of perceptions of what it means to serve as a female. There's a lot of perceptions in general, but that was something that was very important to me. And one of the surprising things that every single workshop I did, I would have multiple female educators come up to me at some point in the workshop saying, I wish I had known this was an opportunity because I probably would have joined. I still would have been an educator, right? But I would have done 4 years first and then maybe made a career out of it. But they were just like, I didn't even know it was a possibility for me. And actually, we had an educator one year who she ended up joining the Army Reserve as an officer because the experience at the workshop impacted her so much. And so that's what I love about the workshop, the challenging the perceptions. What is something that you would change from the experience, or for better or for worse? What's something that you think the experience could have been better from?
If they would have like taken time to get rid of the sandflies, that would just been wonderful. It would make my experience so much better.
Yeah, I think honestly, like the like the comforts, right? The creature comforts for some of it. Like I remember that bus being hot. I remember being hot outside when they're doing the run. Things like that, right? But like I think we, some of the other things like in the sand pit, right? Like that's a real lived experience, right? Of what they're doing. Now it was a very, very small snippet of what the recruits actually see.
Right.
I never, like, can't take that away from anybody, but yeah, I think that they did a really good job of seeing the whole gamut, right? From start to finish. You see it's all 13 weeks, right? 13 weeks.
Yep.
So it's all 13 weeks in pretty much 4 days. You see a little bit of everything. Now it's fast, right? And that's how you get 13 weeks done in 4 days. But I think such a good job. You get to see the processes. Like, I mean, I learned that the food that they give the female recruits is different than the food they give the male recruits because their bodies require different nutrients and stuff. Like that was amazing to me. That's science to me, right? I'm like, wow, that's cool. But I think they did a really good job of helping explain that. I think the drill instructors, like day one, like you don't talk to the drill instructor. Day 3, you can have a conversation with them. And that's what the recruits feel, from what I understand. And so I think seeing that whole piece, that whole puzzle being put together for us, and obviously like that's the way my mind works anyway. So like I was like, oh, I see that now. Oh, I see that. And I'm putting the puzzle pieces together. So, I think some people took them until the end. I started putting the puzzle pieces together, like kind of like halfway through. And, but I think it's just cool the way the Marine Corps does that piece is awesome.
Yeah. And this program is a national program. So the Marine Corps has 48 recruiting stations across the nation. So as an educator, if you are interested in attending the workshop, you either go to the West Coast, San Diego, if that's where your recruits go, or if you're on that side of the Mississippi, or like on this side of the Mississippi, the East Coast, you go to Parris Island, which is the same for individuals who are joining the Marine Corps. And so it is a great experience that I guess it will lead to my next question of, would you encourage your peers to attend this workshop?
I absolutely would, and still do. I absolutely would. Just to go behind the scenes to see how the base is, or how the camp, how it's like ran, the support aspect. We actually went to the Air Force base, like the Yeah, the Air Force Base or
It's Buford, so it's the Marine Corps
Buford.
Air Station that's there
The-
next to Paris
okay.
Island. Yeah.
the Marine Corps Air Station, and we're able to talk to them and look at the planes, and it's just so much involved with it, and you don't have all the answers. As an educator, we like to think we do sometimes, but we don't. And every experience that we can get, that we can share with students and other teachers, and even the community, we need to make sure we seek those opportunities and those experiences. Because what we are very good at is application, right? We are able to take an experience and knowledge and apply it to different situations. I think that is a gift that educators have. And we also have insight into people. We are more empathic to, what our students need, what would help them, whether it's for them or not. Are you really resistant to authority? Have you been that way for years? Or are you kind of just experiencing, just lack of direction, but we see that leader in you, So there's a lot involved. So keep this program going, please, and do not shorten it because it is a jam-packed 4 days. It's jam-packed. It takes a while to even process everything. Look, we are talking about this as if it just happened yesterday.
And it was how many years ago now? Like
I
at
only
least
want to
4?
say.
At least 4?
Exactly.
So it had
So-
to be more than 4 because I've been at the school I'm at for 4 years.
Okay, well, geez. Okay,
It
then
was probably 5 years ago.
Okay.
I would say 5, maybe 6.
and it's still that ingrained in you, the experience, which is just phenomenal. And so the workshop, you also get as educators, I think it's 32 continued education hours currently. I may be, you guys didn't get that?
I didn't know about that piece.
Okay, well, you were supposed to. So the certificate that you got at the end, that was like your confirmation that you completed the 32 or 34 hours continued education. So I guess for those other
You get
educators,
plenty of hours. I get plenty of hours. So I'm not
okay, well, for other educators who don't, they're free continued education hours. And I don't remember if it's 32 or 34, but so there's an additional benefit of going because I know depending on where you are, those aren't always, provided by your school district and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
there's a huge career help as well to go into the workshop. And so who can go to the workshop? So high school educators, coaches, influencers, elected officials are not allowed to go at all. Middle school and elementary school are not allowed to go. And the reason being is it's the most direct impact, which would be, the high schoolers. And so that's who the educators are getting the knowledge for. So if you are interested in attending the workshop, reach out to your local recruiter. And since we're talking about local recruiters, the next question I have is, how did the workshop change your relationship with your local recruiter? Because this is somebody who changes over at least every 2 to 3 years. I mean, it's different, right? With every person. And how has this workshop kind of changed that relationship or helped build that relationship?
I think for me, like being in the school system still, direct contact with students. Like I really like our recruiters being in the school, right? I like them talking to kids. Their job is to recruit, right? But at the same time, I learned that they're looking for a certain person. And so that's why the majority of the conversations are for that, right? Is this the right person for us? Is it the right fit? So I have really, opened my doors to recruiters. Like if you want to come in and sit in the cafeteria and talk to people, let's do that. I got a couple kids that I've recommended to recruiters. I said, hey, I want you to go talk to this person, right? You're interested in the military. I want you to talk to this person. And then that person's going to send them in the right direction, right? Like if the Marine Corps isn't it, they're going to send them to the Navy. They're going to send them to the Army. They're going to send them wherever, right? So I think, just allowing them to be in the buildings, I think is really important. I also think it matters who your principal is, right? If your principal doesn't necessarily believe in it, then you're not going to get that back, right? Because if your principal tells you they can't be in the building or they can't be on property or they can only be in the cafeteria, then that's the rule, right? You got to follow that. but I think at the same time, like, find ways to connect kids to the people that are going to help them be their best version of them. That's what our job is, right? And so if that means I'm going to connect them with a military recruiter, then so be it. Hopefully that they become the best version of them and they do something to better the next generations. And I think if we're doing that, we've done our job.
Yeah, I agree 100%. An open door policy is a given. You cannot leave this experience and not have an open door policy for military recruiters. But with the Marine recruiters that came, they knew all they had to do was check in at the office. They would check in with me to see if I had any needs, but we had an open door policy. Also, oh my goodness, this was so profound and I forgot my thought, but I will come back to it. But I think what Mauricio said was so striking that I had to add that, endorsement of just having an open door policy. Yeah.
And I think the workshop also gives a really good tool of how can you bring those recruiters into your school? Like, what are some of the programs that they can do, or what's some of the give back? And some of those things are like combat fitness challenges for different sports organizations. The Marine Corps has now different sports academies that are free leadership academies across the East Coast. I won't talk about the West Coast because I don't really know what the West Coast does because I was on the East Coast, and it's not just football. I mean, we in Greenville had the first, and Charlotte actually had the first volleyball leadership academy ever the Marine Corps has done. You have recruiters who can come in and talk about the NRTC scholarship, which is a $180,000 scholarship.
Absolutely.
I gave photography classes to a lot of the schools. You have your marketing and public affairs Marine who can come in and give different classes, or depending on what a recruiter's actual job is in the military, that's another way that you can bring the recruiter into your classroom. And especially again, if you have those administrative or that staff who's kind of anti, well, then what's the value? You can show value, and the recruiter can come and do this. The recruiter can teach this, and it can be not really based on the Marine Corps, right? But they're at least getting an interaction. And at least if somebody's curious, that can give them the opportunity, like, yeah, we need to ask more. We want to ask more. So I just remembered my thought. Parents. We have to talk about the parents because it's difficult for some to let their babies go or to allow their child to embark on this journey. And they don't know much about it. So the recruiters would bring me in to a conference or a meeting or a phone call with parents. I did that 4 times. And all I did was talk about my experience. And it's something about having that someone, especially in a leadership position at the high school, who can articulate, the advantages of this, and also some of the things that they saw, firsthand. It really kind of helps the parents ease up just a bit. And so that's something that the recruiters, expected of me. We talked about it, and I was more than happy to, facilitate those conversations. Before I wrap up with the last question, is there anything else about the workshop or recruiting or anything like that you guys want to bring up or want to talk about that maybe we haven't talked about yet? I guess just be open. Like if this is something that you want to do as an educator, know that it's 4 days, know that you have to show up, at the crack of dawn. Like be ready each day to learn and keep an open mind, and participate. And one of the things for me that the workshop, and so this isn't for the educators, this is for hopefully the Marines and the recruiters who are listening to this, utilize the educators who have gone before. When you get to a new school or a new area, ask for the list of educators who have found before, because those are going to be your biggest advocates in that community. when you go to the workshop, or an educator goes to the workshop, take pictures and give them pictures. Follow up with them, write a thank you letter for attending. Make sure that they know what's going on all the days leading up, and then post, because those relationships, again, like how you have relationships in the Marine Corps that never end. I mean, these relationships, again, we've been connected for how many years, and we're still connected, right? We still have conversations with each other. And so I think that that's something it's very magical about the Marine Corps. And I think the workshop does it well, where it gives you these connections with people that you kind of have for life. And so the last question I have for you guys is, if you had the chance to go again, would you?
No, if it's 4 days, I want to be there a week. Like, I want to spread out just a little more, 4 days is, I don't think you can do that in less than 4. But yeah, I would go if I could just sleep in a little longer.
I would say, I think the easy answer is yes, right? Hell yes, let's do it again. But I also think the hard answer is, like, I've already gone. So can I justify to my boss, right, that I'm going I'm going to be gone for 4 days. Good luck.
Yeah. And normally the Marine Corps doesn't let people go again because there are so limited seats now that they do in certain situations, like you said, like so much changes in so many years that, like, sometimes it's very important to bring somebody back again and be like, here's all the, here's all the changes, or here's, because there's been so many dramatic changes in the Marine Corps. But it's the question. So when I have Marines on the podcast, the question that I always ask them is if they would join the Marine Corps again. So I had to ask you guys if you would attend the workshop again as well. So I thoroughly appreciate you guys coming on the podcast, and I appreciate everything you do in your communities and your schools, and for the relationships that we've been able to build from this workshop. And I greatly appreciate it.
The relationships, the friendships that have been strengthened, the relationships that have been built, even if we just follow each other on social media, you really feel that you're still connected in so many ways. I know that if I find myself in your neck of the woods, that I can call you and be like, hey, I'm here, and you're like, all right, come on and meet the kids, it still continues. The benefits just keep a coming. And so, it was something that I just will never regret.
This is the Oath We Took podcast, and you just heard a piece of the Marine Corps story through the experience of educators who attended the Marine Corps Educators Workshop. If you are a high school educator, coach, or influencer and would like to attend or learn how you can attend the workshop, please contact your local Marine Corps recruiter. The workshop is an opportunity for you to be better prepared to help your students make informed decisions. Marine service matters. Our stories matter. Not every Marine story is the same. We didn't all join the military for the same reason. What is the same is the oath that we all took. An oath that easily could have ended in death, and for some, it did. So listeners, instead of asking you to thank a veteran for their service, I'm going to challenge you to continue to listen to their stories instead.